Speaking of Logan Paul, Triple H, the game, was on the Impaulsive podcast this week. And he sat down with Logan and his homeboys and did a long form interview, the full almost hour of the show. Stephanie McMahon was in the building. She wasn't on on the set or part of the interview, but they did pan the camera to her a couple times, sitting off to the side watching it, along with Nick Khan. Apparently Nick Khan was there too. And interesting to see how invested, we have the CEOs and we have the head of creative and talent relations all there to see Logan's show. And of course they could just have been there, to show their support for Triple H, but I think they were there just as much to hang out with Logan, invest in Logan Paul as, not just a performer, but, to support what he does outside of it and get a better idea and better feel for what he's doing outside of wrestling. And I always love, it's the same thing with Pat McAfee's show, right? It's always interesting to see guys that are in wrestling, and like when McAfee had Vince on, it's like, okay, Vince is your boss over there at WWE, but now Vince is on your show. So Vince ain't your boss on this show. So it's interesting to see that dynamic. And same thing with Impaulsive, right? Like Triple H and Steph and Nick Khan are all there, but this is Logan's show and Logan's conversation. And him and Triple H had a good conversation. And Logan, in this clip here, Logan had brought up how that he feels, everybody's a big attitude era mark, right? And he talks about how when he liked wrestling, it was edgier and people were going hard on each other and that kind of stuff, more hardcore stuff. And that he thinks that something like that would be a big draw to bring people back into wrestling. And he was talking with Triple H about that. And here's what Triple H had to say about that whole thing. Check out this clip.
Lore of professional wrestling is the hardcore nature of it, right? Like, you got guys in there who don't give a fuck, right? They're showmen. They'll put their bodies on the line. They'll, hit people with objects and go crazy. But, now you do have to work around those parameters a little bit more.
You do, but like, I often think that, so a lot of times that stuff is overblown. It's the story, right? Like, if you watch a movie, and I always equate what we do to movies, right? To me, if you watch a movie and it's just a slasher film, it's fun, but it's not going to stick with you forever. It's just blood and guts, and it's slashing, and everything's just like who can do the more violent kill or the crazier kill or whatever that is, right? And what's the most ridiculous way somebody can die in this movie and have their guts come out and an eye pop out of their head or whatever that is, right? It doesn't stick with you. It's not memorable. It's the stories. Even in that era, we did a lot of crazy stuff that was mind-blowing and was shock television. But the reason it lasted was not because of the shock television. That's maybe what made you go, what was that? But what kept you there was the emotion and the storytelling.
I think they're both right in different ways. Triple H is right that it is about the stories. And I think that's something we're seeing with AEW currently, because I feel like AEW puts on the better wrestling show. Their wrestling matches, they always have great wrestling matches. You can't be a fan of wrestling matches and say that AEW has a shitty show. You just can't. They put on great action-packed wrestling matches. But the thing that they don't do necessarily that's causing them the trouble to get over that hump of the 1 million is that they're not connecting to people with their stories. They don't really have stories. They try to tell stories. They have some little stories, like Jericho and the Combat Club or whatever are having their little story going on right now. But there's nothing, it's not like the Festival of Friendship that he did. And so, over in WWE with Kevin Owens, that was a story that drew people in. So I think Triple H is right when he says that it's the stories that make wrestling what it is, not the gaga, not the gimmicks, not the spectacle stuff, the stunts. But I think Logan has a point that he's saying that wrestling could use more of that stuff to draw the casual fan in. Because he made the example that him and his friends didn't really watch wrestling much anymore. And since Logan's been involved, it's brought him back in, and he's been able to bring his friends into watching wrestling, and now they're all hooked on it. Now they all love wrestling. So wrestling has that ability to suck people in, at least more people than it has now. Not everybody's going to like it. You know, I can't tell you how many times, even just here on this YouTube channel, I get people that'll comment like, oh, it's that fake wrestling shit. Like, we're still there. We're still there where the criticism of wrestling is that it's fake. Really? Like, there's so many people out there that still sit back and they think that wrestling fans believe that wrestling is real and watch it because we think we're watching real fights. And these guys are the assholes that are going to break the reality to us like, you know, that shit's fake, right? It's all a bunch of fake shit. Come on, man. Come on. Get a clue. Get a clue. So it's a mix of the both. I think you need the bigger stunts, and you need things that will, and it doesn't mean that they got to go edgy. I still think, you know, remember when news broke that they were going TV 14 and then they kind of pulled back on it? I think that was maybe leaked out because that's something that they planned to do once Vince was out of place. You know, they kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit there. And I do think that they still will transition to TV 14. And I don't think it's going to go back to the Attitude Era necessarily. I think it's just going to allow them to be a little bit more loose with the kind of stuff that they do. And even, you know, back at SummerSlam with the Brock with the pushing the ring up with the tractor and stuff, that was a stunt. You know, that was a gimmick that's going to get people talking and maybe get people to want to watch and see what's going on, and then they can get sucked in with the stories and stuff. So I do think they're both right to a certain extent. It's the stories that are going to hook you and keep you, but I think it's the stunts and the gimmicks, not all the time, but here and there, that are going to get people to come in. And I think Logan Paul is going to help with that because he's a huge, huge star and has a lot of exposure outside of wrestling. Tons. And I think the more that he's out there representing WWE or talking about WWE, that's just going to open it up to more people and get more eyeballs on it. So all around good shit. And I highly recommend going to check out this interview with Triple H too. It's fun to see, you know, you get to see Stephanie and Nick kind of laid back a little bit and chilling. You know, Vince was never the kind of guy that went to interviews and stuff like that. She seems to be having fun just hanging out, you know, so that's cool. And Triple H just kind of laid back, hanging with a bunch of dudes. Because if you ever watched Impaulsive with Logan Paul, it's like him and two of his buddies, and they're almost like frat boys in a way, you know. Like, I hate to generalize them like that, but you know, they're jocular, just dudes, you know what I mean? And they have a very dude mentality and ask very dude questions. So it was fun. It was a unique environment for Triple H to be in, and you know, he had a lot of good things to say about where he wants to go with the WWE going forward. Great shit. Go check it out. It will be linked in the description below.
Oh yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah, and you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Oh yeah, dig it.